Metals are getting more precious, but why? Gold prices have been soaring to record highs after jumping above $1,500 an ounce for the first time yesterday. It's trading at above $1,500 today. Take a look at that trajectory, the blue line going up. Now look at the dollar. That's the one going flatlining and going down. Now when we talk about precious metals, copper has also risen, silver has surged, and you see the dollar, it's falling to multi-year lows. So what is this about? Is this about the decline in the U.S. greenback? The global reserve currency, not to mention? Well, joining me for more is Charles Goyette. He's author of this New York Times best-selling book, The Dollar Meltdown. I think I have an idea of what he's going to think. So, Mr. Goyette, what do you think is going on with gold? Is it surging this high as a result of concern over the U.S. dollar?
Well, you could say that, but the truth is that the value of gold is more or less holding steady. And it's the value of paper currencies that are not denominated in gold that is falling. So the purchasing power of gold over the long period will stay more or less the same, but the purchasing power of the dollar, as you know from filling up your gas tank, and as you know from going to the grocery store, the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar is falling, as are all the paper currencies of the world.
Aside from the purchasing power, what about concern with investors, with central banks, with governments over the dollar? Is that reflected in the rise in gold in comparison to the fall of the dollar?
It's very clear that the Republicans and Democrats in Washington are not equal to the challenges ahead of us. They cannot solve the problem, and so economic events, macroeconomic events, are in the driver's seat, and this thing will unfold in a very unfortunate manner because, you get, for example, the Ryan plan about balancing the budget here in the United States. They're talking about balancing the budget 26 years down the road, 26 years. So none of this stuff is serious. Even Rand Paul came up with a proposal to cut $500 billion from annual spending, would still leave this country with a $1.1 trillion deficit. So none of these proposals, nobody in Washington seems to really understand the scope of the problem. And the U.S. dollar is getting squeezed now, not only internationally, as you mentioned, the reserve currency of the world. You've got central banks around the world that are disinvesting from the dollar, bilateral, multilateral agreements to get trade out of the dollar and into their currencies. At the same time, domestically, there is a movement afoot in several of the states across the land to do something to protect the state citizens against the dollar's demise and to remonetize gold and silver. We had a law passed in the state of Utah to that effect just recently. So the events are afoot.
We do see the circumvention of the dollar even just recently with the BRICS, the largest emerging countries meeting to work out trade deals in their own currency. It's certainly a trend, but what really is going to be the tipping point? Because still, you don't see any kind of mass movement to replace the dollar as the reserve currency. So how realistic is that as an outcome?
Yeah, it's actually happening before our very eyes. I mean, we saw things, I think it was a year or so ago, the Central Bank of India, which normally these central banks hold dollars as the reserve currency and issue their own currencies against their dollar holdings. The Central Bank of India, just as an example, just hoarded 200 metric tons of gold. I beg your pardon, of worth of dollars to replace it with gold. Let me give you a better example here in the United States. University of Texas has one of the largest academic endowments in the world, and they now own $1 billion worth of gold. Well, these gold-line endowments never used to think about touching something like gold. But even what's more important, the university has decided not to leave its gold in the institutions, in the depository, in the commodity exchange, but to actually take physical delivery of it. And this is a trend that is going on around the country. Counterparty risk, government risk, more has people concerned around the world. So it seems like it's in slow motion maybe, but if you fast forward a couple of years, the dollar will look very, very different.
So fast forward a couple of years, what do you see in a couple of years? Will the dollar no longer be the reserve currency, or is this going to be much longer term?
Yeah, and I've written about this in my book, The Dollar Meltdown, because the foreign central bankers understand this. The dollar will not last as the reserve currency of the world. Those days are over. And, Timothy Geithner goes to China, and he tells Beijing University students, no, the dollar's fine, everything's fine, and they laughed at him. But here the other day, as you know, Standard & Poor's gives a negative prognosis on America's AAA bond rating, And nobody in the United States really seems to understand the impact of what's going on. So the central bankers of the world know what's going on. The American people are the ones that will be victimized by this, and those are the people for whom I've written this book so they can protect themselves from this government.
Okay.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Saturday, April 23rd, 2011, and I'm Darko. This is my website, www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. I posted a poll here yesterday. If you haven't checked it out, you might want to. It pertains to most people, whether they're riding a car or a moped or whatever. It says here, do you think gasoline prices will exceed the $5 mark this year? This has been predicted for a while now, but every summer it seems to just go to about max $4. So far we have 89% of voters saying yes, 2% saying no, 13% saying maybe, and 5% saying not sure. If you want to get my videos basically emailed to you, you can put in your email address and you'll be notified every time via FeedBurner. Or if you go down here to the right here, if you have a Blogger account, you can follow me on there. Or if you have a Facebook account, you can go all the way down to the bottom here and you can hit this little button there, and you'll be notified when my Global Government News group on Facebook posts the latest videos. So I usually start with the economy, and this first article up is U.S. stocks climb for a week on earnings of Intel and Johnson & Johnson Wynn. It says U.S. stocks climbed, halting a 2-week drop for the S&P's 500 index as companies from Intel to Johnson & Johnson posted earnings that exceeded estimates and housing starts increased. Then we move on to the dollar. Dollar drops to 3-week low versus yen. Euro jumps. Remember what I was saying? Actually, I was quoting George Soros that the euro and the Swiss franc is the new reserve currency. So when you watch that video, I kind of laughed to myself, like, the dollar isn't the reserve currency. It's like that individual, that author said. I mean, India's been buying all this gold as a reserve, and you have Texas, and you have China. China's been stocking up on gold. They've also been selling treasuries, and they've been trading bilaterally with Russia. So, I mean, those are all moves that indicate that the U.S. dollar is no longer the reserve currency already. And it says here the dollar fell to a 3-week low against the yen on speculation. The Federal Reserve will reiterate next week its intention to keep interest rates near zero, as always, right, artificially, dampening the appeal of U.S. assets. So they want to get people to constantly suckered into this, let me put it, Keynesian, hey, I pronounced it right. And thank you for those two individuals that corrected me on that. I keep saying Keynesian, it's Keynesian. Economic model, so they want to artificially stimulate lending to a bunch of suckers, and that's what they do. That's how the system works. And so here we have dollars decline speeds up with risk for United States. The U.S. dollar's downward slide is accelerating as low interest rates, inflation concerns, and the massive federal budget deficit undermines the currency. Then we move on to European stocks climbing as company earnings bolster confidence. It says here European stocks climbed this past week, recovering from a sell-off as earnings from Intel, Apple, Puget, I think it's a car company, spurred investor optimism in the global economic recovery. Then we have Yuan continues climb to end at record. Reevaluation seen unlikely. The Yuan ended at a fresh record high on Friday as the central bank continued to allow the currency to rise to help fight imported inflation. But onshore traders remain convinced it would not resort to any one-off reevaluation despite rumors overseas. Then we have China's yuan appreciation versus U.S. dollar quickening. China's yuan hit a new record high Friday as the central bank set the midpoint at an all-time high of 6.51 to 1 U.S. dollar. Commodities. You look here to the chart. Right here was, I like to point this out because it's a good reference point. This was the Fukushima disaster in Japan. The most likely HARP-induced false flag, and here it bottomed out right here, actually going down as far as commodity prices. Then they started to climb back up, and now they're going back down. But this is kind of like the gas prices, right, where they'll go down and then they'll go up, and then when they go down, the furthest they go down is the highest point it was before, and it'll keep doing that, and people will become acclimated to that, the slow rising prices in food and fuel on that. And we move down, we have Brent crude trading at $123, almost $124 a barrel, up 14 cents. Then we have heating oil futures down $2.20. Natural gas futures up 10 cents. And then we move down to coffee. Coffee was down almost $5. Corn up $4. Cotton up 45 cents. Wheat up $14 and $12. And then we move down to soy futures, or $20, so pretty high. And move down here to copper. Copper is up $6. And then we have gold at $1,503. And it says here it was up $4.90. Silver, look at silver here, $46. And now it says here it was up $1.60. So silver and gold right now are hot. And it says here gold soars to record in 6th straight session, and spot gold surged to a lifetime high on Friday in a thin holiday trade, hitting a record for a 6th consecutive session on a weak dollar and factors ranging from geopolitical uncertainty to inflation concerns. Then we have oil lifted by weak dollar and volatile trade. That's an article from the 21st. Obama sees no magic bullet to push down gas prices. And says here, no break is the gas pump this spring. With gas prices above $4 in some states, Americans are canceling spring break plans and rethinking summer vacation, and some tourist destinations are offering gas vouchers as much as $50 to talk people out of giving up and staying home. Okay. So it says here, China crops in short supplies, fewer farmers spur food prices. Man, that was tricky to say. It says here, tribal wars could be looming for Africa. It says poor resources management, bigger problems than scarcity. And you just think these people, have been surviving in this area, in this environment for thousands of years, right? I remember watching, it's just a movie, but still, there's truth to it, right? The indigenous people they've been able to survive off the land for thousands of years. That's why they still exist. And quickly down under, remember when the main character, Magnum PI, is out there and he gets helped by the indigenous, and what do? They teach him how to survive out in the outback of Australia because, dude, any modern person from society goes out to the outback, they're not going to live more than 48 hours because they're not going to be able to find water. And it was the indigenous in Australia that were teaching him, Tom Selleck, his character, who was from America, how to find water out there in the middle of nowhere. Just using these little, whatever they could, little straws, and siphoning water out of the ground and knowing where to find it. So they can find water. It's just politics that are involved, and a lot of people die because of it. And then people in this circle, this little news circle that I'm in here, like to call that eugenics or population reduction. It's pretty evil. It says Treasuries advance before Fed meets on bets growth will suffer. And then EU's, it says here, the last straw for British taxpayers, £400 per family demanded by the European Union communist bloc. And it says Japan government announces disaster relief budget. This is just terrible, like I said, because they've already, printed off trillions of dollars in stimulus in order to devalue their currency. While their currency was appreciating, the yen, they printed a bunch of money, inflated the currency, and now it's devalued. So now the Japanese government just announced a 4 trillion yen emergency budget for disaster relief. So the real relief was just to remain calm and not freak out. But like everything else, Japan is not immune from the financial terrorism. In fact, Benjamin Fuller thinks that that's why they got harped. That's why they got an earthquake and a tsunami, because they resisted. So now it looks like everything is pointing towards the Japanese government, or i.e. mafia, basically just doing whatever it takes to help these bankers, right? Get their little loan deals here with high interest. That home you bought in '79 has lost 8.5% of its inflation-adjusted value, and termites eat 10 million rupees inside bank vault. Why? Because they don't like inflation. They're deflating the currency, the dollars, and they're actually increasing its values. So the termites are smarter than Timothy Geithner and Ben Bernanke. Maybe we should start listening to them. Fraud fuels China's underground organ industry. Then American Southwest cancels St. Louis flights after tornado closes airport. Dynacore, known for child sex trafficking, to pay $7.7 million in whistleblower case. And it says here, tax the rich, 14 facts you may want to consider. And this is right, by raising taxes on the wealthy, it will absolutely hammer small businesses in the United States, and they provide the majority of new jobs. Please join me in part 2. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.